welcome to another episode of the Prescription for Better Living podcast. I'm Dr. Hernando Carter, board certified internal medicine physician, your primary care extraordinaire, welcoming you to episode 31 of the Prescription for Better Living podcast, where our goal remains to discuss all things health and wellness in a hip and relatable way. So, welcome to episode 31, everyone. 31 weeks together, and we're going 52 weeks. So let me say to my returning PBL family, welcome. Thank you so much. To our new subscribers, and we have gained quite a few subscribers since we last got together. Welcome to all of our new prescribers and new PBL family. Our community is growing. So welcome, welcome, welcome. But hey, listen. If you would like to support our podcast, there are a few ways you can do that. You can join our Patreon family, just $1 a month. That's patreon.com/Dr. Hernando Carter. You can also hit us up on the Cash App, $PBL podcast. Hey, if you want me to, I'll pull up on you at the chicken spot and get that little change out your pocket, whatever you want to do. But we appreciate your support. Also, we need you to subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and Podbean. We need you to share. We need you to comment. We need you to like, give us stars, all of that. We need your engagement. But hey, y'all, I have some exciting news for you. We have been talking about a long time. If you want to be a sponsor of the podcast, reach out to me. And I'm happy to tell you that we have our first sponsor of the Prescription for Better Living podcast. Yay, our first sponsor. First sponsor is Right on Time Physical Therapy. The owner, proprietor, and licensed certified physical therapist there is Cedric Cooper. Hey, let me tell you some great things about Right on Time. First of all, it's a small business. It's Black owned. It's right in our community in Birmingham, right over there in Ensley off Avenue D, right at the Ensley Health Club. You ought to check them out, rightontimept.com, and tell them that Dr. Hernando Carter and the Prescription for Better Living podcast sent you. So, episode 31. Now, you may remember episode 30, we started talking about just healthcare systems, right? And we talked about that there are 4 major types of healthcare systems that countries all around this world deploy. Okay. And the thing that we said, if you recall, about the U.S. healthcare system is that it is very complex. And it's very complex because in the United States, we don't have just one type of healthcare system. Oh, no, 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 no. We have all 4 types of healthcare systems. If you want more of a breakdown of what those 4 types of healthcare systems are, go check out episode 30. We went through that in detail. So as I started thinking about subsequent episodes, I thought people don't really understand the U.S. healthcare system. And so we need to spend some time in this module really trying to break it down, bare bones, how our health care system works, what are the strengths of our healthcare system, because there are strengths, especially if you visited other countries and had to receive healthcare in other countries, you would know that we are blessed and fortunate despite all of its shortcomings. We're still blessed, but there are some shortcomings. So we have weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses, but we need to talk about our healthcare system. And I thought a very good place to start would be to talk about Medicare. Okay. First of all, because a lot of people don't know what Medicare is. They don't know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. Hernando, is there a difference between Medicare and Medicaid? Well, I'm glad you asked. Yes, of course there's a difference. Otherwise, I would not have said that most people don't know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. So we're going to kind of get into that. We're going to get into the history of Medicare, We're going to talk about functionally how Medicare and Medicaid work. And then we're going to break down in detail Medicare. But let me take you back to before I was born, to before 1965. Now, if you thought that I was born anywhere near 1965, I have a few choice words for you, because I know that I look young. I know you thought I was born at least in 1990, 92, maybe 80. Gary, I'll give him 89, brother. 89. You thought I was born then. But I wasn't. I wasn't born. I was born in 79. I'm a 70s baby, but I darn sure wasn't born in the 60s. I'm still a young man. But anyway, let me take you back before 1965 and explain to you why we had to have Medicare. So, before Medicare came on the scene, 40% of individuals who were age 65 and older did not have health insurance. They didn't have it. Well, why is that, Hernando? I'm glad you asked. It's because as you get older, as you reach what they call retirement age, the cost of insurance goes up astronomically. And I'm talking about private insurance, right? And so you got to remember, most people, the majority of people, get their health care insurance connected to their jobs as a benefit of their employment. And so their employers pay a portion of that insurance cost that we call premiums. And then the employee, you pay a portion of that insurance cost. That may be through premiums that come out of your check. It may be through copays or deductibles, right? But most people's health insurance, even back before 1965, was connected to their employment. So you have a situation where employers are finding it increasingly more difficult to provide insurance for their employees who are in their 60s. I mean, the cost is just more. Well, why is the cost more? Glad you asked. It's because as we get older, we tend to what? Have more chronic illnesses, right? Maybe require hospitalization, have to have more medical procedures, surgeries, etc. And so that cost goes up, whereas you didn't have to take medication on a regular daily basis. Now you got multiple medications, more visits to the doctor, more referrals to specialists, etc., etc. And so I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Insurance companies have to make money. They have to make a profit. And the way insurance companies make a profit is by spending as little of the money as possible that you and your employer pay for the insurance, right? So your premiums that you pay, they want to spend out as little of that premium as possible. So at the end of the year, they have a surplus, they have something left over. And it's certainly a loser for them if they are paying more for your health care than your premium, right? But that's what was happening. And so we're getting in situations where you have 40% of Americans 65 and older who did not have health care insurance. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem because you're still going to develop issues, right? Illnesses that you need to have addressed. And so what was happening? So you got people who are reaching retirement age, who are being kicked off of the private insurers' rolls, who are now becoming of age where they are having more chronic illnesses, conditions, etc., and they don't have money to pay for health care. And now they're faced with losing their life savings, the money that they've been saving for retirement, losing their homes, foreclosures, or maybe going without care and being sicker and suffering and dying sooner. So this is a big problem. This is a big problem. So before Medicare, only 60% of individuals 65 and older had health insurance. Also, around that same time, 70% of individuals who were below 65 had insurance. So, older adults cost more. They were being kicked off the insurance rolls. And this was a big problem. All right. So, historical context here. The name Medicare, where did that come from? I'm glad you asked. So the original name Medicare actually referred to a different health insurance program that really had nothing to do with the elderly or disabled. The original Medicare program was created to provide health care for the families of soldiers, of military members of the military who were in active duty, whose families did not have health insurance coverage. So there was a in the Department of Defense, there was an act passed that housed this in the Department of Defense that was called Providing Medical Care for Families of People Serving in the Military. All right. And this was the genesis of the name Medicare. Now, this act passed in 1956. But again, this was for the families of people serving in the military. And it was for just those individuals, 1956. So, but now this was a huge problem, okay? A huge problem. And so in January 1961, President Dwight D. Eisenhower held the very first White House Conference on Aging. And so at this conference, they were going to discuss a litany of things surrounding the aging population, such as what do we do for these individuals who are reaching retirement age, but they can't afford to retire, the social safety network, and a major topic at that conference was how do we provide health care for those American citizens who are aging. So they said, can we come up with a health care plan or create health care for Social Security program beneficiaries? Okay. Well, who are the Social Security beneficiaries? They were the retirees. So they said, hey, these people who are collecting Social Security for retirement, we need to figure out how do we provide them health care insurance. And so between 1961 and 1963, they attempted to pass health care for Social Security beneficiaries multiple times, and it failed each and every time. It failed. Well, why did it fail, Hernando? I'm glad you asked. You think we have politics now? Let me take you back to the 1960s. I wasn't there, but I heard about it, learned about it, read about it, seen movies and documentaries. My grandmama was there. My mama was there. It was a very tumultuous time. You think with like MAGA and left wing, right wing, all that stuff, you think we got stuff going on now? You think January 6th was something, baby? January 6th ain't have nothing on the 60s. Protests everywhere, marching, sit-ins, fighting to integrate public spaces. The March on Washington. And oh my goodness, assassinations. Presidents assassinated. Civil rights leaders, our heroes, assassinated. Dr. King, Malcolm X, assassinated. So it's in all of this that we have Medicare trying to be passed. So a lot of people lined up and they fought against it. Who fought against it, Hernando? The medical industrial complex fought against it. Hospitals, organized medical groups like the American Medical Association fought against Medicare. Now, American Medical Association and all organized medical groups now are totally in favor of Medicare, but that's for another time for us to discuss. But back then, oh no, they were against it. They fought it. Well, why'd they fight it, Hernando? I'm glad you asked. Before Medicare, when you're dealing with just private insurance, right? What the medical industrial complex said was that once you get the government involved, there's going to be more regulation. There's going to be more bureaucracy and red tape, right? And there's going to be cost control and all this kind of stuff, because before then, hey, hospitals said what their rates were and insurance paid it. Doctors said what their rates were and insurance paid it. So there was resistance. There was, and does this sound familiar? They said, you get Medicare, we're going to go to socialized medicine. Government is going to be in control of your health care before you know it. That's what they were saying back then in 1960s. Sound familiar? When we think about our battles for the Affordable Care Act, sound familiar? They said, oh no, America will cease to exist as we know it if Medicare passes. This is what they said. We will become a communist country if we pass Medicare. The American Medical Association even hired the most popular actor of that time. Good looking, suave, smooth, debonair. Ladies loved him. No, I'm not talking about Denzel. I'm talking about Ronald Reagan. They hired Ronald Reagan. Now, you got to think about this now. Think about this. Think about, especially my people, black folks, think if today they got Denzel Washington to be the spokesperson for or against something, right? Denzel, fine Denzel. Y'all know y'all love him, especially my mama and them. Lord have mercy. Love them some Denzel. So imagine Denzel, smooth, fine, suave, debonair. Imagine him coming up saying, Medicare is bad, is going to lead to socialism, communism, socialized medicine is horrible. And this is what they did. So they fought it for years and years. They fought it. And they were successful for 2 years. But in 1963, a bill proposing Medicare and increased Social Security benefits passed the Senate by a vote of 68-20. That's good news, right? But let me take you back to Schoolhouse Rocks. You remember that? I'm just a bill, I'm just a bill, just an ordinary bill, and I'm sitting up on Capitol Hill. Remember that? So you remember how a bill becomes a law, right? You have to pass one house of Congress, so you pass the Senate, okay, that hurdle. But then you got to go over to the House, and then it's got to pass the House. But the House can change the bill through this process called amendments. And let's just happen to say that the House passes it with the amendments. Well, does it get signed? No, 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 no. It's been passed with amendments, so now it's got to go back to the Senate. And now the Senate got to debate those amendments and decide whether they're going to vote the bill up or down or whatever, change it some more, and it's back and forth. So it's ping pong for a while, right? And then the bill gets passed by both houses of Congress, the House and the Senate, and then it goes up to the president, who can sign it or he can veto it, right? So that's the process. So the Senate passed it in 1963, but it still hung out there for a while. Schoolhouse Rocks, ping pong, back and forth, right? Well, 1964, they had an election. And in the election of 1964, there was an increase in the pro-Medicare candidates in the Senate and House. So remember we said in the Senate, it passed 68-20. So pro-Medicare forces gained 44 votes in the House, and they gained 4 votes in the Senate. And 4 votes in the Senate is a big deal. It's a big deal. So in July 1965, under the leadership of President Lyndon Johnson, Congress enacted Medicare under an amendment of the Social Security Act. And so we have finally Medicare. And do you know who the very first 2 beneficiaries of Medicare were? No, Hernando, will you share it? Of course I will. So the law is signed July 30th, 1965. The very first beneficiaries of Medicare were former President Harry Truman and his first lady. Very first 2. So I had to give you some historical context about Medicare so you can know kind of where we were before, the road to get there. And then in our next episode, we're going to go more into how Medicare actually works. And it is complex, convoluted. So we're going to spend some time talking about that. But hey, listen, this has been another episode of the Prescription for Better Living podcast. Yes, I'm Dr. Hernando Carter, board certified internal medicine physician, your primary care extraordinaire, saying wherever you go, whatever you do, stand on the tallest mountaintop you can. Spread the gospel, the good news, and say hallelujah. Dr. Carter is here. Until next time, Dr. Carter saying peace out.